Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, that sounds good. All right, welcome everyone. Today I have a really exciting topic for XP customers that are moving potentially to the composable SaaS world. Just a little backstory about where this came from or why I decided to talk about this today. Is that our DevRel team participated in the internal Sitecore AI hackathon, and we basically built out a chatbot that used behavioral personalization in the form of browser history to achieve personalization for our chat bots. Also, a lot of folks have been asking me about this specific scenario, the first use case that we're going to talk about, which is how to achieve with XM Cloud, how to achieve XM Cloud with Personalize, how to achieve patterns and profile cards, or something like that. And then I'm going to also talk a little bit at the end, the second use case, which is XM Cloud, Personalize, and Search. Not going to work. All right, there we go. So before I begin, I just want to quickly introduce myself. This is actually my first time speaking at SUGCON Europe, actually first time speaking at SUGCON. So super honored to be here. Glad I got selected for this. I'm a developer advocate at Sitecore. I've been at Sitecore for about 2.5 years now, so quite some time. And my focus has been CDP and Personalize for the most part. Also working with different forms of personalization and migrations, which I think kind of relates to our topic today. Before I joined Sitecore, I was a 5-time Sitecore technology MVP, so I was pretty much very familiar with the community, except for in the US. They don't do SUGCONs quite as often as they do out here, so I never got the opportunity to do SUGCON events. So, and I've been working with Sitecore for about 10 years now, so about a decade in Sitecore. If you want to reach out to me today, you can reach out to me via email, or I'm pretty much everywhere else, LinkedIn, X even, Slack. So just feel free to reach out to me. And I do have a blog where I create a lot of great content about these topics, including a link at the end of this where I'll talk, where I have a link curated to this specific topic today. So for our agenda today, we have quite a bit to cover. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but we'll jump in. So first, I'll spend a few different kind of slides, kind of setting the stage for what we're going to be talking about, the title behind this presentation. So to start out, we'll quickly talk about what XM Cloud Plus is. So a good way to think about this is that XM is a private cloud offering. It's usually something you host yourself or in the cloud. But if you wanted to go SaaS, you would go to XM Cloud. And the same is the case for XP. So if you were wanting to host it yourself, then you would use XP. But if you wanted to go to SaaS, then that's where XM Cloud Plus comes in, which is essentially just a bundling of different products that make up kind of the same capabilities as XP does. Today, I'm only going to talk about a few of the products, so I'm not talking about CDP or Connect or Content Hub 1. So I'm really going to focus on use cases specific to Personalize and Search. And so that's kind of good because you don't need all the products to do some of the use cases I am talking about today. So the next slide, kind of part of the title, is what is behavioral personalization? It's all about collecting data from viewing habits. So think about it as indirect versus primary, like direct data that you might collect from a form or something like that. And we'll mostly be focused on browsing history data today, both in this, the first use case, which is XP pattern profile cards, and then the second use case, which is with search. Although with search, you could do other means like search queries and such. In our case, we're going to make certain assumptions about our users based on what pages they are looking at. So we can apply additional meaning to those pages that they're looking at, such as attributes and things like that, just like you would with XP with pattern and profile cards. So I had to make a few assumptions. I wanted to do just like with XP. We have 3 personas that I'm going to demonstrate today, the tech enthusiast, the business professional, and the student learner. We'll be applying these changes to the SUGCON North America site, and that is an open source XM Cloud intro project. So it was a good opportunity for us to, or for me to add that to that project so everybody can see the changes that were needed for that. These are just examples. I use ChatGPT to create these, so it just shows what you can achieve if you're just looking for examples. And then we have 4 attributes to each persona, or profile keys as they were known in XP, that are assigned different values per persona. So the same attributes that we would assign to personas, we can also apply to pages. Keep in mind that this is just like XP, or that's what I was trying to achieve with this. So for example, the homepage, we don't really want to assign any keys to that because we really can't assume much about who the user is based on the fact that they're navigating to the homepage, because everybody goes to the homepage. But if somebody were to go to the session or training pages, then we could sort of assume that they're probably likely seeking knowledge or more information about things. Whereas somebody goes to the speakers page, they might be more interested in networking. So these are just examples, just to show that how it could work, but obviously your organization would come up with its own personas and own profile keys or attributes, etc. So just wanted to take a glance what this looked like in XP, and this will kind of lead us into our first use case with XM Cloud and Personalize. So XP, as probably most of you are aware, is they have profiles, profile keys, patterns, and profile cards, all just kind of naming conventions inside XP that represented items that you would assign to pages and kind of define your personas. Unfortunately, that configuration exists in XP, but as a marketing control panel, but it no longer exists in XM Cloud. So we're going to essentially recreate that functionality. Our goal of this use case is just to achieve the exact same functionality as you would have in XP. So let's talk about our first use case. Go into it. So like I already mentioned, the first step is to recreate the items, the configuration of the personas and their attributes. So what you see there on the left is actually the custom configuration I added. It's just essentially templates and items that make up those personas. What is not showed there, that I'm not going to show today, is the assignment of those attributes to the pages, but that's really just a field where you're assigning the attributes and giving it a score. And then obviously once you publish this, there's the next stage, which is modifications to the Engage Cloud SDKs in order to consume this data when somebody navigates to pages. And so we'll walk through those changes. And it's probably good to call out the fact that a lot of these changes, if you're trying to make customizations to XM Cloud, you're probably going to be making similar changes like this. So the first thing, I'm assuming that you're using Foundation Head, you're using Next.js for this, and this is going to talk about before 21.6 of JSS. I'll cover 21.6 and beyond in a second. So I opted to replace the CDP page view with a custom changes that I was making because I didn't want to overwrite the out-of-the-box functionality. And so I duplicated it, and then I applied my changes, which are now going to be talked about. So in this custom file, we need to customize the create page view. because we want to pass in this additional attribute data that we're collecting from XM Cloud. So we needed access to route data so that we could access that page level field data. So I've skipped here, but this would allow you to read data from that route. So that's essentially why you make that change. And then once you have that access to that field, then you can do essentially I did an if check. That's not necessarily required, but you probably should. And then the engage.page view allows you to pass in additional arbitrary data into it. And that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm building an object for that and passing that in. So basically, every time you do a page view event, you have the ability to pass it additional data so that Personalize can then understand more information about that page view. And so in our case, we want to send it the attributes that we're setting to the page. So what about 21.6 and above? And I saw 21.7 came out yesterday. So there might be some slight variations even to what I'm got here in the slide. Didn't have a chance to update it. But essentially there was a new SDK introduced in that, the Cloud SDK. So there's some slight differences. There's a lot of similarities, but you can see there's some slight differences in just what we would need to do if you were using the Cloud SDK versus the Engage SDK. And then one last modification I had to make to the code is I'm going to be showing a demo of a web experience. So with XM Cloud, web experiences aren't enabled by default, so there's just additional configuration that needs to be made in order to enable that. I opted to potentially use another method, which is a condition. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second, about the different options that you might have if you're building personalizations into XM Cloud, custom implementations. So really it comes down to just a couple changes for enabling web experiences with XM Cloud. So let's talk about, now that we have the data into XM Cloud and we're able to sort of pass it to Personalize, let's talk about the configurations of Personalize. So I created this kind of matrix of the different options when it comes to specifically XM Cloud. When deciding, let's say you need to do some sort of personalization, there's obviously the out-of-the-box conditions that come with XM Cloud. So if you just had XM Cloud, you would have kind of that native support for conditions. But if you have Personalize as well as XM Cloud, then you would have additional options when you're going to build personalizations on your custom scenarios for XM Cloud. I am going to demo a decision model today. So conditions work for a lot of use cases, but once you get into more complex scenarios, specifically today, I'm going to have a connection back into XM Cloud to pull in our persona information so that we can make decisions on that. Once you get into those kind of situations, then you're really going to need a decision model, and there's really two approaches for implementing that. You could do a web experience where you change the configuration, or you can use a full stack interactive experience, which it's a little bit more custom to implement that. If you need any help understanding this table, I wrote very late last night a blog post about this, and there's going to be, I'm going to sprinkle in a lot of blogs about that I've written in the last week or so about these use cases. So if you want more detail, those blog posts go much deeper into these topics. So before we jump into the demo, I thought it would be important to talk about the fun algorithm that exists that makes all this possible. This is the same thing that XP used, essentially. It's called the n-dimensional Euclidean distance calculation. We have some slight differences. First off, the obvious one is that algorithm is written for XP, it's written in .NET. So in this one, I wrote this in JavaScript. It seems to mostly work. So that's something to keep in mind. The other great thing is you have access to the algorithm. So once you have access to the code, which I'm providing, then you could make changes to this if you wanted to alter it to account for other scenarios. One such use case for this is decay rate. I don't cover that specifically in this code I'm about to show, but that's a really good thing to maybe look at doing is decay rate, because if you get if you get one user that goes to lots of different pages, after a while, the persona that's attached to that person becomes kind of static in that it's always going to be that same persona. And decay rate helps you, it allows you so that older traffic is valued less than the current traffic. So it gives you a little bit more ability to change that persona as you go. A little fun fact about the n-dimensional Euclidean distance calculation is that it's also used in machine learning. It's used in n-nearest algorithm. So that's for data classification. So if you were trying to classify a data point on a spectrum graph, then you would essentially look at all the closest points to it, and then it would help you determine what that item should be classified as. All right, I think that's it for that. It's time for demo. All right, so like I said, and hopefully it's showing up. Nope. I probably have to move it. Maybe. That will make it awkward. Let me duplicate it. That'll work. One second. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. I'll meet later. Not the time. Hold on. Ooh. Oh, there we go. All right. Let's go back here. All right. So now you see it. Okay. So like I mentioned, we're looking at the SUGCON North America website. So the way this works is when you first start off, you don't really have any personas attached to the current session. But as you navigate, unlike XP where you had to go 3 pages and then it would start showing up as a certain persona, I have it configured to do it from the start. So that's kind of what I mean by you can configure this to be kind of match the needs of your organization of how you want it to work exactly. But to start out, I want to trigger specific personas. So to do that, I'm just going to navigate to different pages. I'm going to start out with the sessions page. So going to the sessions page, it will detect that I'm interested in learning about knowledge because I'm interested in different sessions. And because of that, it's going to attach and say you're the student learner, essentially. Nothing crazy about that, but then if you then navigate to other pages, it should actually start to change based on it's collecting that first page view and then the next page view. And so then it's now changed it to I'm a tech enthusiast because I was interested in the sponsors page. Let's take a look a bit of how this works in Personalize. Hopefully this works. So we're going to take a look at the experience first. We have a web experience, like I said. And you can see I've been playing around with stuff, but I essentially have this V2 item. And the experience itself is pretty straightforward. I need to pause it in order to see its configuration. And demos are slow. There we go. All right, so we'll take a look at the build real quick. Maybe. There we go. So there's not too much going on here. First off, I'm using an out-of-the-box sidebar, basic web experience for this. There is some things to note to this. I can open this real quick. And you'll see that I'm pulling back results.persona title, persona description, and image as well. That's all coming back from our decision table in our decision model. This could have been done this way. There could have been other ways. If there had been a little bit more time, I realized I probably should have pulled back content from XM Cloud. Probably would have been a little bit more full circle, but this just provides an example of how you could use this. And this is just, once it calculates what is the closest persona, then it will essentially display an experience for that. So I'll back out of that. A few other things here is I do have a decision model assigned, and then I also have some page targeting. So I'm just saying don't show this on the home page. And so let's take a look at our decision model, because that's where all the fun happens. All right, and you can see I've made lots of archives there. So it's not a crazy decision model. I've definitely seen more complex ones, but starting from the bottom up, on the right, left here, there's a data system call. This is just pulling in persona information from XM Cloud. So it's needed, that information is needed so it can figure out the attribute values when it's calculating that closest persona. And then on the right, at the bottom here, the programmable, that's just basically curating all the guest attribute data that's coming in via that page view. And then I'll show this one. There's a lot of code in here, but essentially then this item has all the logic that's related to calculating that persona using the Euclidean distance calculation. This code is available, so it's not hidden or anything like that. So if you wanted to start using something like this or to customize this, you could do that. And so it all kind of starts at the bottom, pulls in those fields from those first two nodes at the bottom of the decision model and pulls it up, and then makes additional function calls that calculates the closest persona. And I'm not going to necessarily walk through all that, but it seems to work from what I can tell. And then lastly, I didn't mean to click that. I'll show the decision table just to show full circle. So it brings back match persona, and then based on that value, we just return a title, description, and image from that. Pretty straightforward. All right, that's it for the demo. Let's go back to the slides. And I'll probably have to leave duplicate. Back to the start, it looks like. Hold on one second. Probably should have started at slide instead. All right. All right, so let's talk about the second use case. Sorry about that. So the second use case is not really necessarily for XP. This could show a potentially better way to configure behavioral personalization when you bring in search, because it requires less configuration. You don't have to go out and kind of define these personas. You can actually use kind of search's capabilities to do that, or help with the personalization. So this brings in the concept of affinity scores, and I will admit that I'm not super deep into Sitecore Search, but I am very curious about these affinity score capabilities. This is a part of Sitecore Search, and it helps it bring back relevant personalized search results for your search results, essentially. So a little bit, kind of explain how that works a little bit. Let's say you have search configured. Maybe you have the type of search or type of page indexed. So this could be like if it's a blog, if it's a docs document, maybe insights, something like that. So if the user is viewing a lot of those types of pages, maybe they really like blog content, this leads to the algorithm boosting or the kind of search results for blogs. And so it's kind of saying you have an affinity into whatever that attribute is for Sitecore Search. So for our use case, I'm going to use a search tenant that was tied to the developer portal that Rob Earlem set up, and he helped me set up the personalization stuff. We're going to use product name because that makes a lot of sense. We'd really love to know, what products are users most interested in. So if they're interested in XM Cloud, this would boost up the search results for XM Cloud in the search results, but wouldn't it be great to also use this for other things? And so that's where kind of Sitecore Personalize comes in. So as you navigate a website that has Sitecore Search on it, you're kind of building up this user profile, and we can then use that user profile in a decision model in Personalize. So how is the affinity scoring used? There is essentially an API that's available, user profile. I have a very detailed blog that I wrote, I think I released it on Monday, that goes into depths of how you customize that API, how you make requests to it. And essentially, it returns back pages visited, search history, and the affinity information, depending on what you pass it, what you tell it you want back, but also what you have configured in your search tenant. We also need to pass that API, the search user ID. There's a couple ways you could do that. You could use some sort of client-side function to call into the cookie and get the cookie value because there's a cookie set. There's also the Search React SDK, which allows you to access that. There's a code sample there on the screen, which I was passed that by Rob. And then, like I said, this is the function that we're going to call inside our decision model. So let's take a look at the decision model. Don't have a demo for this because it wasn't, there's nothing after the decision table, but we could have done more with it. But really, this is the show that it could be done or can be done because we're using this on developer portal. So we use a connection at the bottom. Pass it a domain ID for the search tenant that you're on, and you need to pass it also the, like I said, the user ID of the user on the website. My thoughts here was to use a full stack interactive experience trigger this experience and this decision model. That would allow you to pass in that ID that you get from the front end. And then this goes in your decision model where you can use that information to come back with the kind of user profile data from the search user profile API. The next part is programmable. This was optional. We're just getting back the highest product affinity, but you could just get all the information back, maybe process it into a format that you would like, and then return that back directly to your front end so you could do additional things with it. Or you could do, I do have a decision table on this example that allows you to, you could do more with it from inside your decision model. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, there's a bunch of great examples I have. I put the 2 pull requests that I did for the XM Cloud intro. So if you want to see the changes that were made to that GitHub repo, that's where you can go and access that. I do have a QR code for the blog posts. There's 4, I believe, that are all kind of specific. I wrote a really long blog post probably 3 or 4 months ago that really detailed all of this outside of XM Cloud. So this whole exercise was bringing this back into XM Cloud and led to this presentation. I also have a link there that just talks a little bit about Cloud SDK versus Engage SDK. Very helpful document. And can't thank the sponsors enough, obviously. Couldn't do events like this without them. So thank you. And I think that's it. I open to questions. I want to say special thanks to Connor O'Shea. He's not here, but he's on professional services team. Helped me with that second use case of the search stuff, so thought it was worth calling out.